My family publicly humiliated me at my brother's wedding, but I owned the catering company. So I left 300 guests with no food or cake. Now they're suing me for $75,000, but the truth that leaked destroyed them socially. I'm 31 years old. I own a pretty successful catering company in Chicago, and I need to tell this story because what happened a few months ago at my brother's wedding basically went viral in my industry, and people keep asking me what the hell happened. The short version is that I destroyed my own brother's wedding reception, but the long version, well, that's the one I need to tell because there's a lot more behind all of this. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was 14 and my mom died of ovarian cancer. It was horrible. Obviously. Like one of those things that changes you forever. You know? My brother Nathan was only 8 at the time, so I don't know how much he really processed all of that. My father was devastated, or at least that's what it seemed like. But it turns out his way of dealing with grief was to meet Barbara at a support group and marry her less than a year after Mom died. Less than a year. Not even 12 full months had passed. And there was already another woman living in our house, sleeping in my mom's bed, rearranging the kitchen like she'd always been there. Barbara was like 38 when she married my father. He was 45, and from the beginning it was weird. She wasn't mean in an obvious way. You know what I mean? It was more subtle than that. Like she always had comments about what I ate, how I dressed, my grades at school. My mom had been an elementary school teacher, super warm and understanding, and Barbara was, I don't know, like a corporate manager all the time. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be done her way, and if you didn't agree with her, somehow she made you feel like you were the problem. The worst part was how she treated Nathan compared to me. With him, she was all sweetness. Called him her little prince, spoiled him in everything. With me, it was constant criticism. And my father, well, he just let it happen. I think he was so grateful to have someone help him with us that he didn't want to make waves, or maybe he really didn't care. I don't know. Over time, my father started drinking more, whiskey mainly, and when he drank, he got increasingly nasty with me. He'd tell me I was ungrateful, that Barbara was making such an enormous effort for us that I should be more grateful. Ungrateful for what was never clear. When it came time to go to college, things got really ugly. I wanted to study hotel management at DePaul University, and when I asked my father for help with tuition, he flat out told me no. That Barbara and he had talked and decided that I needed to learn to be independent, that student loans would make me more responsible. Okay, cool. I accepted it. I worked as a waitress all through college, took out loans for like $60,000 in the end, and graduated in 4 years while working between 30 and 40 hours a week. I was proud of myself, honestly. But then Nathan got to college age, and guess what? My father and Barbara paid for everything. Everything. Full tuition at Northwestern, rent for a nice apartment in Evanston, a new car, living expenses, everything. When I asked my father why Nathan was getting different treatment, he yelled at me that it wasn't my business how they spent their money, that Nathan was different, that he really appreciated what they did for him. The implication being that I had never appreciated anything. I guess things reached the breaking point when I was like 25. By then, I had already started my catering business. It was going well. I was working like 70 hours a week, but I was building something real. One day, my father called me casually to tell me they'd sold the house where I grew up, the house where my mom lived, where all my memories of her are. They didn't ask me. They didn't give me advance notice. Just, hey, we sold the house. Come get what you want before Friday. I went that same day, and it turned out Barbara had already thrown almost everything away. My mom's photos, her jewelry, her clothes, all in the trash. She said they needed space in the new house, and these were just old things nobody needed. Just old things. My mother's memories were garbage to her. It was at that moment I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I went no contact with them 6 years ago, when I was 25. I sent my father an email telling him exactly why. Everything I had endured, all the hypocrisy, the favoritism, the disrespect toward my mom's memory. He never responded. Nathan tried calling me a couple times at first, but eventually he stopped trying too. And I moved on with my life, built my business, did therapy, processed all that family trauma, and honestly, I was in a pretty good place. My catering company grew quite a bit in those 6 years. I started with small events, birthdays and baby showers, that kind of thing. But eventually, I started getting big corporate clients, luxury weddings, high-profile charity events, like 8 months ago. Actually, I acquired a smaller catering company that was having financial problems, basically bought their client list, equipment, and some of their existing contracts. It was a good investment. Expanded my reach in the Lake Forest and North Shore market, the area with people with lots of money. So, fast forward to January this year. I get an invitation in the mail, an elegant cream-colored envelope with my name written in fancy calligraphy. I open it, and it's an invitation to Nathan's wedding. He's getting married in June at a super exclusive venue in Lake Forest. I hadn't spoken to him in 6 years, and out of nowhere, he invites me to his wedding. Part of me wanted to throw the invitation in the trash immediately, but another part, I don't know, was curious. And maybe part of me wanted to see if anything had changed, if maybe Nathan had finally grown up and wanted to reconnect for real. I texted him, his number was still the same, and told him I'd received the invitation. He responded super quickly, all excited, saying he really wanted me there, that his fiancée wanted to meet me, that many years had passed, and it was time to leave the past behind. He didn't mention anything about an apology, didn't acknowledge any of the horrible things that had happened, just basically wanted to pretend nothing had occurred. But I decided to go anyway. I don't know why, honestly. Maybe I wanted to show them I'd been successful without them. Maybe I wanted closure. Or maybe I just wanted to see how awkward everything would get. The wedding was on a Saturday in June, at a place called the Estate in Lake Forest, one of those places with perfectly manicured gardens and ballrooms with crystal chandeliers, very elegant, very expensive. I arrived wearing a pretty conservative navy blue dress, nothing scandalous. And when I entered the ceremony, I immediately noticed where my seat was. I was technically immediate family. I should have been in the front rows, right? Nope. They put me in row 12, basically with strangers and distant family friends. My father, Barbara, and other relatives were all up front, obviously. It was humiliating, but I kind of expected it. So I didn't say anything. The ceremony was nice, I guess. Nathan looked happy, his wife too. She was a kindergarten teacher, a super sweet girl from what I could see from afar. During the reception, I sat at a table in the back of the room. Again, away from the family. The food was, well, standard wedding catering food. Nothing special. House salad, chicken with a lemon sauce, chocolate cake. During dinner, my father approached my table. He was already drunk. I could smell the whiskey from a meter away. And he told me, pretty much verbatim, "Good that you could come. Surprised your failed business gave you time off?" Just like that, unprovoked, just pure poison. I didn't respond. I took a deep breath and just didn't respond. He laughed. That nasty drunk laugh I knew so well. And left. I thought that would be it. That I could survive the rest of the night, and then leave, and never. I have to see these people again. But then Barbara got up on stage to give a toast. She started talking about how proud she was of Nathan, her little prince who had grown up to become a wonderful man, blah blah blah. Then she said, and I quote, verbatim, because this is burned into my brain, "It's especially emotional to see him form a real and loving family, something we all need, especially when some family members choose resentment over love." She looked directly at me when she said that. People started turning to look at me. Some people clearly didn't know what she was talking about, but family and close friends did. I felt my face burning with shame and fury. And then, I don't know what came over me, but I suddenly remembered something. When I had acquired that small catering company 8 months ago, one of the existing contracts I had inherited was, yep, you guessed it, this wedding. The previous company had been hired over a year ago, before I bought it. But technically the contract was now mine. The clients had been informed of the ownership change, but most didn't pay attention to the details because the service terms remained the same. Barbara and my father had hired catering without knowing they would eventually be hiring their estranged daughter. I got up from my table and walked to the kitchen. The event manager, Miguel, who had been working with me for like 3 years, was there supervising. I told him, "Miguel, I need you to pack up everything right now. All the buffet food, the wedding cake, everything. We're shutting down this event." He looked at me like I'd gone crazy and said, "What? Now? In the middle of the reception?" I told him yes, now, and he started protesting, saying this could ruin us, that they'd sue us, that there were 300 people there. I told him I'd handle the legal consequences, but I needed him to trust me. To his credit, he did. He gathered the team, and within 15 minutes they had packed up the entire dinner buffet, the complete wedding, cake, even the appetizers that were left. The guests started realizing something was happening when they saw the catering staff literally packing up the food and taking it out of the building. Nathan ran over to me, totally panicked, and yelled, "What the hell are you doing?" I told him, very calmly, considering how furious I was, "I'm exercising my right as owner of this catering company to terminate our service. Your mother," and I said it with all possible sarcasm, "decided to publicly humiliate me, so I decided I no longer want to provide services for this event." My father appeared seconds later, his face red with fury and alcohol, and started yelling at me that I was a miserable bitch, that I was ruining Nathan's day, that I had always been a disappointment. Barbara was crying, not from sadness, but from that helpless rage, screaming that she was going to sue us, that she was going to destroy us, that she was going to take everything from us. The guests were taking out their phones, recording all the drama. Nathan's wife was in complete shock, not understanding what was happening. And I just turned around and left. The following Monday, as I predicted, I received a letter from a lawyer. They were suing me for $75,000 in damages, catering cost, emotional damage, public humiliation, everything they could fit into the lawsuit. My lawyer reviewed the contract, and it turned out there was a clause that allowed me to terminate service if there was abusive or threatening behavior toward staff or owners of the company, something standard in our contracts to protect us from horrible clients. Barbara's toast and my father's comments technically qualified. Eventually, we reached a settlement. I returned 60% of what they had paid for catering, like $8,000. We signed an NDA where neither party could speak publicly about the incident, and they withdrew all lawsuits. But the story had already leaked in the events industry. Some thought I'd been unprofessional, others thought I'd been iconic. Opinions were divided. Honestly, I was surprised that the effect on my business was mostly positive. Several potential clients contacted me saying they respected that I didn't let myself get walked over and wanted to work with someone who had that integrity. Barbara tried to sabotage me after the settlement. She called some of my employees trying to convince them to quit, contacted some of our suppliers trying to spread rumors about unethical business practices, even tried to leave fake negative reviews on our online pages. It was all pathetic and desperate and easily provable as false, so it didn't work, but it showed exactly what kind of person she was. What I didn't expect was for Nathan to contact me like 2 months later. He texted me asking if we could meet for coffee, that he really needed to talk to me. I hesitated a lot, but eventually agreed. We met at a Starbucks in the Loop, neutral and public. He looked terrible. Honestly, dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept well in weeks. He told me his marriage was in serious trouble, that his wife had given him an ultimatum. Either he set boundaries with Barbara and Dad, or she was leaving. He told me things I didn't know. Apparently, Barbara had been manipulating the family finances for years. The money that was supposedly Dad's for his retirement, Barbara had been using to pay Nathan's credit cards without him knowing, creating financial dependency. Nathan had wanted to buy a house with his wife, but Barbara insisted they live in a property she and Dad bought as an investment, charging them rent but maintaining control. Everything was control, control, control. He told me he was finally seeing things as they really were, that he realized how much they had hurt me all these years, that he was so sorry. I'm not going to lie. Part of me wanted to yell at him that it was too late, that where had he been these 6 years when I needed him, when they cut me from the family without thinking twice. But I also saw that he was really sorry, that he had finally woken up to the toxicity of it all. I told him I appreciated the apology, but that I would need to see real actions before I could consider rebuilding anything, and to his credit, he's done them. He and his wife started couples therapy. They moved out of Barbara's property to an apartment they're renting while they save for their own house. They went partial no contact with Dad and Barbara, just occasional calls and no visits. His wife actually contacted me too, apologized for the wedding even though technically she hadn't done anything wrong. I said that when Nathan told her the whole story of our family, she completely understood why I did what I did. Last week, Nathan and his wife invited me to a small dinner with some of their close friends. They said they're planning a vow renewal ceremony next year, something intimate without all the circus of a big wedding, and asked if I'd want to be there. I told them I'd think about it. Honestly, I'm still processing everything. I still don't know if I can fully trust that things have really changed. 6 years of family trauma doesn't disappear because someone finally apologizes. You know what I mean? My business is better than ever. Ironically, the wedding drama, although it was horrible at the time, ended up being unexpected publicity. Several high-profile clients approached specifically because they heard the story and respected that I defended my boundaries, even when it cost something. We just signed a contract to provide catering for 3 large corporate events for a consulting firm, something we wouldn't have gotten before. I hired 5 new employees last month. Things are good. As for Dad and Barbara, I heard through Nathan that they're facing their own social consequences. Apparently, several of their friends from the country club found out what happened at the wedding and weren't very impressed. Some even cut contact with them, not because I'm particularly important to those people, but because publicly humiliating your own daughter at a wedding and then suing her is, a bad look even for rich and superficial people. Barbara is apparently furious that her social reputation is damaged, which, I'm not going to lie, gives me a small and petty satisfaction. I don't know how all this is going to end. Nathan is trying. That's real. His wife seems genuinely like a good person, but there's still so much damage, so much lost time. Sometimes I think about my mom and what she would say about all this. I think she'd be proud that I didn't let myself get walked over, that I built something successful on my own, that I finally stood up for myself. But I also think she'd be sad to see how our family disintegrated, how Dad became someone so different from who he was when she was alive. What I do know is that I don't regret what I did at that wedding. Was it dramatic? Yes. Was it probably the most mature way to handle the situation? Probably not. But did it feel incredibly satisfying to leave 300 people without wedding cake after years of being treated like trash by that family? Absolutely. And if that makes me petty or vindictive or unprofessional, well, I think after everything I put up with, I earned the right to a moment of justified revenge.